Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ground Pass. This is going to be a mini pod. It is just me here, Anastasia. Nick is on vacation, so he's not here today, and I am in a train station, but that is a story for another day. Today, we're going to be talking about the ATP Finals, which concluded today in Turin. We're going to catch up on all the fun things that happened in Turin, because this actually turned out to be an incredibly fun tournament. Sorry to all the ATP Finals haters. And we're also going to talk about the Davis Cup, which I will preview a little bit of. That starts next week. Let's get into it.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Food Network Obsessed is your podcast for all things Food Network. I'm Jamie Sire, and I talk with your favorite chefs, food influencers, and Food Network personalities. They tell me all about how they started their careers, who and what they've been influenced by, and what it's like to cook in a Food Network studio. You'll hear from stars like Alex Guarnaschelli, Guy Fieri, and Bobby Flay. Listen to Food Network Obsessed wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
So, if you watched my little coffee catch up, if you're not following us on social media, what are you doing? But of course, we have a little coffee catch up on Instagram or on TikTok or even on YouTube Shorts, wherever you find our short videos. But the journey to the final of the ATP Finals is what really mattered in this tournament. I think coming into the ATP Finals, a lot of people really did expect a Sincaraz final, which is valid. They have been the best players this season. They have met so many times in all of the big finals. So I think everyone was definitely considering them the favorites to get to the final. And yes, for some people, that didn't feel like a great sort of prospect. You know, sometimes when you know the end of a story, what's the point, right? But the journey is what mattered. Once we finally figured out who the top 8 players were going to be, which, if you listen to the last episode, did take a while to get there, but we finally got there. These group of 8 players actually produced some phenomenal tennis. So let's get into what was the journey that led to a Sincaraz final. The players that were eliminated first were the Americans. Ben Shelton, coming into this tournament, didn't really feel like himself, really. I think we know Ben Shelton as the showman, the sort of big, loud, American, young tennis player. We love his style of tennis. He's always so exciting. But he felt a little muted in this tournament for some reason. And I think that had a lot to do with his injury that he suffered at the US Open. Coming into this tournament, he just did not have a lot of match play. He did, he played Paris. He got a great win over Rublev in Paris. And Ben says he's a player who likes to play a lot of matches to get into that rhythm of match play. And he didn't really get that. So he kind of felt a little bit flat and didn't win any matches this tournament. So was eliminated. Next player eliminated was Taylor Fritz. I know, not expected to be one of the players eliminated early in this tournament, but his first 2 matches were really good, really exciting matches. He played very, very well. He played a really, really tight match against Carlos Alcaraz. In fact, in the group stages, he was the only player to really push Carlos Alcaraz. But I think that match that he played against Carlos Alcaraz really took it out of him. He kind of pushed his game style to the max. He was more aggressive. He kind of did his best impersonation of Jannik Sinner to just kind of try his best to bother Carlos. He served great. but he just couldn't get across the finish line. You know, by the third set of that match, he was kind of burnt out and his legs just couldn't take him any further. He lost the match. And then the next match he played against Alex de Minaur, he just wasn't there. And Alex de Minaur was able to take advantage of that and get his first top 10 win, I think, all year in a long time. So yeah, Taylor Fritz, not the greatest end to his season, because I think he kind of deserved a better end to his season. I think I would argue he maybe has been, the third best player. I mean, I think if I was to rank this year the players and how they've been, I would definitely put Sincaraz is on top. Djokovic is probably third, and then probably Fritz before Zverev, and we'll get onto that and why. But I think Fritz definitely has deserved a lot of praise for the improvements he's made this year on his tennis, and he deserved a better end in the year-end final, but c'est la vie. He's also dealing with a knee injury, so hopefully he'll be able to take time off this off-season to really get that healed and come back strong in Australia. And then the last two players to qualify, Lorenzo Musetti and FAA, really did produce the best tennis this tournament. You know what? I will actually add Alex de Minaur into that. They really made this tournament fun to watch. I think starting with Alex de Minaur, he was someone who lost his first two matches, was really down on himself after that, his second match loss. And, I think it was one of the saddest press conferences I'd ever heard. He said he was in a really dark place and he didn't really want to talk about it. But his recovery from that press conference and that match loss to then play a phenomenal match against Taylor Fritz and get that top 10 win was remarkable. It was an example of a player taking responsibility for their own actions, for their own gameplay, and, sort of improving and looking at themselves and say, what do I need to do better? What do I want to do better? And then actually doing that thing better. So Alex de Minaur really, really redeemed himself at this final. And I'm really happy for him that he had that sort of full circle moment of really feeling disappointed in himself and then coming back and feeling great again. And I think that's a great way to go into the off season. I think he's definitely going to be one to watch coming in Australia if he can keep that energy and that sort of positive reinforcement going, for sure. Lorenzo Musetti, last one in. I did not expect anything at all from Lorenzo Musetti in this tournament. He had to play to the very last minute in Athens. Basically, he got to the finals of Athens, lost the match to Novak Djokovic, qualified anyway because Novak Djokovic pulled out of Turin, and I just didn't think his body could handle it, and he showed up in Turin and actually played tennis, played great tennis. And when he did win that one match, there's this photo, I think I'll put it up here if I can find it, and his face is just so expressive and just he's so happy to have won a match at this tournament and at home in Italy. And, it just was such a great moment for him and his team, and his wife was there. Are they married? That's actually a good question. Put in the comments. I never actually know this for sure, if they're married or it's just his partner. I don't know, but this is their second child, so whatever it is, they're married either way. But I think for Lorenzo Musetti, he fought so hard, so hard to get to the ATP Finals, that for him to still be able to play well at the ATP Finals, I think was really important. And I think I'm really happy that he got that opportunity to do that and not be completely just, a shell of himself, which would not have been fun at all. Not with that backhand, not with that one-handed backhand. We want to see that in full flow for sure. Before I move on to FAA, let's talk a little bit about Alexander Zverev very briefly, because I put a post after his match. He lost to FAA, which took him out of the tournament. And I said, Zverev must be the most unclutch player ever, at least currently. And I stand by that because, I think throughout this year, Alexander Zverev has been in some really big finals and big moments, and his ability to absolutely just disappear in those big moments is fascinating. And it keeps happening over and over and over again. And it also leads to technical deficiency. So it's not sort of like he sort of shrinks and disappears, but his forehand just becomes non-existent as well. And you wonder what's going on, because unlike Alex de Minaur, who we just talked about, who is someone who had this sort of bummer moment and was able to sort of reflect, find himself, fix what he thought was wrong, and come back and win a match. All season long, Zverev hasn't been able to do that. He's sort of gone around in circles as to what is wrong and what could possibly be going on with his game, and hasn't kind of landed on what that is. And it's been difficult to watch because you're sort of like, you've been doing this forever. He's going to be 30 next year, and you wonder, can he turn this around? There's a stat going around right now that he, by ranking points, Zverev is third, but by points, he is closer to the 1,000th player in the world than to Sinner and Alcaraz. That is crazy. How are you the third player in the world? It's a very crazy stat. But yeah, I feel like he's currently just hanging on to points from the Australian Open because he got to the finals there at the beginning of this year. And we'll see how his offseason goes. If he can't defend those points in the new year at the Australian Open, he's going to go down with the pack. He's going to join the other lost boys who are out of the top 10 and are, somewhere in the top 20 trying to find their way. I mean, talking about lost boys, Tsitsipas is not going to be seeded in the next Grand Slam. So he's continuing the trend of lost boys, and Zverev is trying to find his way. Wishing him all the luck. And then we get on to FAA. I think outside of Sinner and Alcaraz, FAA at this tournament, I think, was probably the third best player at this tournament. He has had quite the resurgence at the end of the year. We have a new match stories out right now on FAA, and I wanted to dedicate match stories to FAA because I think this resurgence that's happened, it's taken everyone by surprise for some reason. I saw a tweet recently saying, how is it possible that Felix Auger-Aliassime is ranked 5 in the world? Which, by the way, at the end of this tournament, he is now ranked 5 in the world. That is after the last couple of years, him ending the year around 29 in the world for the last 2 years. He started this year off in the 30s, I think he was 30 in the world at the beginning of this year, and now he's ranked 5. This isn't out of nowhere. I think a lot of people forget that he won 2 titles at the beginning of this year, Adelaide and Montpellier. He has had a steady climb that hasn't been the most glamorous, hasn't been sort of the most sort of had pizzazz and like, look at me kind of rise. But he's had a steady rise this year that has kind of led to this end of season peak where he gets to the semis of the US Open and does well in the indoor swing like he always does. Sinner might be the indoor king. FAA is the indoor prince. He does really, really well indoors. And, I think the big conversation going into next season is kind of like, who could be the third? Who could be the third person who bothers Carlos and Sinner, and who can kind of join that party? And I feel like FAA is putting his name in the hat. He's putting his name in the hat as someone who might be able to sort of disrupt that duo a little bit. He didn't win any matches against them at this tournament, but I think he's definitely making his way and trying to make a case for himself to be the third wheel in this duo. I also want to bring up, because he's now obviously 5 in the world, he gets to end a year finals. He's now going to be in all of these press conferences in the big room, talking to all the journalists. They're all going to be wanting to ask him questions. And he got a lot of questions at this ATP Finals that I found his answers very, very interesting because they're different. They're very different from the sort of the groupthink, as they call it sometimes. He has very different ideas from what most of the top players think. I have some of it here, but he mentioned when he was asked about the sort of general malaise of players where they're sort of like, oh, the season's too long and we play too much. And FAA said he didn't understand that feeling, that he's someone who's traveled the world and seen the way different people live, and he's just grateful for what he gets to do for a job. And, if people don't want to play, if they're too tired to play, then don't play. It was a very, very practical way of thinking about things. I will link below in the description of this podcast the interview he gave where he gave that answer, just so you can listen to it in full, not just the clips, because I think people are already clipping up the interview and kind of like calling him out and, oh, how can you say this, blah, blah, blah. Listen to the whole interview, people. Listen to what he's saying. I just thought it was very nice to have a difference of opinion at the top of the game and not everyone just sort of parroting the same things, because it is possible to have a difference of opinion and still make a really good point. I'm loving the way the top of the game is forming itself now, and FA is Felix Auger-Aliassime is a very, very good addition to the top of the game. So those were our top 8 or 6 players, which leads us to our last two, Sincaraz. And yes, we did get that Sincaraz final that everyone was expecting, and it did not disappoint. Jannik Sinner remains undefeated indoors, and he wins another ATP Finals in Turin at home. And I have to say, guys, there's a bit of an advantage that Jannik Sinner has, that the ATP Finals is held in Italy, in Turin. That was some Davis Cup vibes that he had there. I think the day before, Carlos Alcaraz was making fun, and he was like, oh, I hope, maybe 3 or 4 people will cheer for me. And yes, it was a funny joke, but really, they weren't cheering like they usually would for all the sort of like phenomenal, like Alcaraz shots that he makes. Like, he's a showman. He does all these sort of like fun, just crazy out of nowhere highlight reel shots, and he would do them and it'd be like, it'd be one of these sort of theater claps, and you're like, oh, all right. And most of the people there were for Jannik Sinner. So I have to say, Jannik does have a very great advantage that this tournament is at home, but he also has a great advantage that it's indoors. He is just so phenomenal indoors. Hasn't dropped a set, hasn't lost an indoor match in about a couple of years. I think the ranking, I will leave, if you're watching this on YouTube, I will leave the stat on the screen. And if you're listening to this in podcast form, I will leave the stat in the show notes, the accurate one. But I think he hasn't lost his last 30 or so matches indoors. And that's like in a couple of years. That is insane, guys. That is crazy. That is indoor domination. But Carlos made it competitive. And I think that is the great thing about their matches, that they're always competitive. But it's also kind of the scary thing. I don't know about you. Leave a message in the comments. Leave us, a review. Send us an email. Let me know what you think. But watching this match, all I kept thinking was, they're making it competitive. But throughout the tournament, for example, Sinner had a very easy run to the final, if I say so myself. Like, he was winning matches in straight sets, not really having an issue. And here he is fighting tooth and nail against Carlos Alcaraz. And I think that just shows how far away the field is from these two players and how much the field has to sort of improve to be able to really compete with both of them. It's a little scary, going into 2026. I just wonder if we're just going to get a repeat of 2025 away, where it's just another run of Sincaraz finals. We'll see. We'll see what improvements the rest of the field can make in the off season. But again, the finals didn't really disappoint. In general, I think the ATP Finals on the singles side was actually a really, really fun event. I had a lot of fun watching it. And it also kind of was, I know this is kind of funny to say, but I think it really was the hard launch of the Sincaraz relationship. Like, let us be for real. I know we've been talking about this for a couple of years now. Sincaraz, the rivalry, it's great, here they are. It wasn't until this year, for example, that they actually started meeting each other at Grand Slam finals. But they now have met at the ATP Finals. And during this whole week, it's just been a fun kind of wink and nod to each other in a way. Jannik Sinner was giving a lot of interviews in Spanish. Carlos Alcaraz gave, one of his on-court speeches, he gave a little bit of it in Italian. When Carlos Alcaraz, he at this tournament, because he went undefeated in the group stage, he actually secured the number one end of year, trophy. And it was just before Jannik Sinner's match, and in the hallway they pass each other and high-five each other. And in the acceptance speech of the trophy at the end of the tournament, Jannik Sinner is like, if there was any other player who would win this, I choose you. Guys, everyone. What is going on? It is super cute. I think we talked about this last week as well, but they are going to have their very first joint exhibition in Korea just before the Australian Open. It's kind of like in between the off season and the Australian Open. And I think it really is finally the birth of Sincaraz as maybe we knew Fidel, as we knew that rivalry between Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal, and how much of a friendship they had, even though they were such fierce rivals. I think Sincaraz has now finally reached almost that peak where, we experienced the week that they had where it was their world and all the other six players were just sort of supporting cast in their, starring movie. It was very, very interesting, very cute. I think a lot of fans really got into the whole lore, the whole friendship that they have going on, and I kept seeing it being posted online all over the place. So yeah, that was definitely a side story to this whole week.
The best gifts of the holidays make your loved ones glow, inside and out. This season, Osea's Undaria Algae Body Butter is a surefire hit for everyone on your list. It leaves your skin feeling soft, smooth, and deeply nourished, with scents of grapefruit, lime, and cypress, combined with the sweet notes of mango mandarin. Give the gift of confidence this holiday season with Osea. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code OSEAGLOW at OseaMalibu.com.
Good health care is there when you need it. And before you know you will, it cares for you when you're sick and helps you stay healthy. United Health Group, through United Healthcare and Optum, is building a system that's more proactive, coordinated, and personal, where your doctor, pharmacist, and health plan work together to keep you at the center. Learn how we're making healthcare better at UHG.com.
So that was the singles, but we also had the doubles, and the doubles also delivered on the fun. I found the doubles actually really exciting. I think, I did a whole reel about the doubles teams that were playing and all their backstories, and even just making that reel, I realized what a great season men's doubles tennis has had this year. I think for the first time in a while, I think. They were all these sort of teams that had really great storylines behind them. And it was really great to see them all together in the finals, playing some really, really great matches. And some themes came up. First of all, we just have to start with the sunglasses. If you haven't seen this, again, I'll put it up on the screen or in the show notes if you're just listening to this podcast. But Emporio Armani is a sponsor of a few of the doubles players, including actually a title sponsor of the Nitto ATP Finals. So as part of their rollout for the Nitto ATP Finals, they had their doubles players, specifically Bolelli and Vavasori, and then also Aravello and Pavic, who are both, they're both sponsored by Emporio Armani. They were dressed head to toe in Emporio Armani, including sunglasses. They were wearing these super cool, futuristic sunglasses. So as part of their walkout kit, they were wearing it. There was this video that came out. I think it was the Italian Federation that did it for Bolelli and Vavasori, and it was this cool slow motion. They looked so cool. I've said this before, but Bolelli and Vavasori are the best dressed doubles players on the ATP Tour. Arguably, probably just the best players in general. But anyway, the walkout was super cool. Cut to the next day when German doubles players Kravitz and Puetz walk out with baby shark toy looking sunglasses. It was so adorable. And I think it was kind of a way to make fun of Bolelli and Vavasori's kind of cool walkout. They were trying to do their own version of a cool walkout, but make fun of it a little bit. But it didn't end with Kravitz and Puetz. It was carried on by Patten and Heliovaara, who started also walking out with fun glasses. I think I saw some beer goggles. I saw some googly eye glasses that kind of pop out as well. I think I saw some disco type of glasses, but they made it different every single day. It was so fun. I think those are the sort of things that sort of capture the imagination of a casual fan who might not know who these players are, but sees fun moments like this and kind of pays attention. And, I think more of this in doubles, please, is very, very needed. I actually reached out to Vavasori to just ask him what was going on, what did he think? And he took it all in good fun, which is what I love to see. Vavasori is a really great follow. A lot of you might know him from the US Open Mixed Doubles Championship where he won with Sarah Arani. I'll leave his Instagram in the description below. Give him a follow. But no, it was really, really great fun. And that was how the doubles championship started, with this fun moment. And I think what then followed was this sort of experience of British domination in doubles, because what we saw was a semifinals group that included 5 Brits in the doubles semifinals. They seem to have it down pat. They know what they're doing in the British doubles tennis system, at least on the men's side, because a lot of the top doubles teams include Brits. In fact, 2 of them are basically 2 Brits in each team. So yeah, the Brits have it down, and the tournament was won by Double H. If you know. Double H, friend of the podcast. We have interviewed them before in the podcast in a Meet the Player episode. It was really nice to have them finally complete the set. They have now won basically every single tournament you can. A 250, a 500, a 1000, a Grand Slam, and the year-end finals. So congratulations to Henry Patten and Harry Heliovaara on winning the year-end finals. What else happened in doubles? Okay. I obviously have to bring up Evan King and Chris Harrison. They didn't make it to the semifinal round. They were eliminated early in this tournament. But I think really the win for them was getting to the ATP Finals in the first place. I've said this over and over again. They couldn't get into qualies at the beginning of the year. They needed a wild card to get into qualies, and they somehow made it. Not somehow. They played some excellent tennis to make it to the year-end finals. I am still chasing down an interview with both of them. Unfortunately, I have been traveling. They obviously have been in a tournament, so it's been hard to sort of coordinate time. But I also just have some sad news. If you follow us on social media, you already know this. But if you only listen to the podcast, you're hearing it now. They're not going to be together next year. They are separating. They are not going to be paired up, which is a bummer. It is also something that just happens currently in men's doubles a lot, but it also happens in women's doubles too. This is a thing, I think, doubles, and it's tough, obviously. You never know who you're going to mesh with very well at the beginning of the season. Like, you don't know what partnerships will work, if they're winning partnerships or not. Obviously, if you're losing, you don't want to kind of stay with a partnership. But then when you see a successful partnership like theirs, you think, well, why aren't you staying together? And I really don't know the details of that. If I get them on the podcast, believe you me, I will be asking them exactly why. But, they are separating. Chris Harrison is going to be playing with Neil Skupski next year. So yes, Neil Skupski is not going to be playing with Joel Salisbury next year. Joel Salisbury is going to be going on a break. I think it was announced during their match in the finals. I read this from Hanlon Walsh, who is a journalist who does cover a lot of doubles tennis, but he mentioned that it was said on the broadcast that he has decided to take a mental break from tennis and actually will not be playing till the clay season of next year. So Skupski is going to be with Harrison, and Evan King is going to be playing with Australian John Peers. So yes, they already have partners for next year. They're going to separate ways. I will still try and hunt down that interview for you guys because I have promised it. And they did say they would do it. So I'm going to try and get that for you. There have been some other, separations and mix and matches and doubles. I've already heard some on the women's side. So maybe that will be a special episode that we will do during the off season, all about doubles going into the new season.
The holidays are coming, and I've got a Boost Mobile gift just for you. Aw, for me, Anna? Yes, Anna, you deserve a gift. The Boost Mobile Unlimited plan is just $10 a month for the first 2 months, then $25 a month forever, with unlimited data, talk, and text. It's a gift. Thanks, Anna. Anytime, Anna.
The holidays are here, and the best gift is for you. Offer valid at boostmobile.com. After your first 2 months, you'll pay $25 a month unless you go online or call to cancel. Requires autopay.
Next, let us preview the Davis Cup. So the Davis Cup is happening. It is going to be between November 18th and the 23rd. It is basically the last tournament of the season. There's the challenges happening, ITFs happening, all of that stuff. But basically, the WTA season ended with the WTA Finals. The ATP season is now technically over. What is left now is the Davis Cup. And we still have some pretty big names playing the Davis Cup. Carlos Alcaraz, who got a little bit injured during his final against Sinner, is still committed to playing the Davis Cup, at least as of now that I'm recording, which is Sunday, the 16th. Alexander Zverev is playing Davis Cup. We've got Zizou Bergs, we've got Jean Minaur who's playing, we've got Yuri Lehechka playing, we've got Cerundolo playing, but basically the teams playing Davis Cup are Italy, Austria, France, Belgium, Spain, Czechia, Argentina, Germany, and I have put them in order of who they're playing. So basically Italy plays Austria first, France will play Belgium, Spain will play Czechia, Argentina will play Germany. Obviously, if Carlos plays, Spain seems to be the favorite. He has said that he really would love to win Davis Cup this year. Sinner will not be playing for Italy. Also, Lorenzo Musetti has pulled out. So Team Italy will consist of Matteo Berrettini, Lorenzo Sonego, and then also Andrea Vavasori will be playing as well. Great doubles player. So I still think that's a pretty stacked team. I'll be watching Davis Cup. I hope you'll be watching Davis Cup. It's going to be held in Bologna. It was held in Malaga, Spain last year, but now they're at their new location in Bologna. There's been a lot of discussion about Davis Cup amongst the top players. I think in a lot of their press conferences, they've been asked about the Davis Cup. A lot of them have kind of mentioned wanting the Davis Cup to be over 2 years instead of what it's currently every year, kind of to mimic what other World Cups do. For example, the World Cup every 4 years, Olympics every 4 years. So the Davis Cup, which you could say is the World Cup of tennis, should it really be every year? Maybe a 2-year kind of thing is better. All food for thought, but it is going to be in a few days. What else? Let's end with a few news bits, or at least things I think you should check out. I kind of want to start adding this segment to the podcast because I think there are a lot of fun things happening around tennis that it would be fun for you all to check out, but I don't know what to call this segment. I might actually also make it into a reel that we post every week, because every week we have, This Week in Tennis, which I post at the beginning of the week. And, at the end of the week on a Friday, I'll post our coffee catch up to sort of catch you up on what's happened during the week. But I also kind of want to add this segment of sort of fun things to check out in tennis. Help me out. What should I call this segment? What should we call this segment? Put it in the comments, leave us a review and write in the comments. Also, by the way, I know I'm giving you a lot of homework, but I was looking at our Apple podcasts and we have 17 ratings. So 17 people have rated us. Thank you to the 17 people who have rated our podcast. Thank you. It really does mean a lot. Like, it really actually does. These sort of things are what help other new people discover our podcast. Or, if someone's new to tennis and they're just looking for a tennis podcast, we come up in the search if we're rated. And thank you to the 17 people who have rated us so that we do show up. But it would be so awesome if we could get to 20 by the end of the year. Can we do it? I think we can do it. That's just only 3 more people. So we only need 3 more people to rate this podcast on Apple Podcasts so we can get to 20. I think we can do it. Guys. Anyway, back to tennis news / things to check out. That's what I have it as in my little rundown here. So first thing to check out is the interview that Andy Murray gave to the podcast, and I'm going to read it right here. The podcast is the Ramesh Ranganathan Show. I think I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not, but it is an excellent interview. It was so funny. I don't want to give anything away, but literally the first 5 minutes of the podcast kind of explains everything that you need to know. Second thing I will mention is the Player Box podcast. The Player Box podcast is a podcast hosted by Madison Keys, Jessica Pegula, Jennifer Brady, and Desiree Krajcek. They are all WTA players. Well, Jen Brady doesn't play anymore. She's not an active player, but used to be a WTA player. And I will specifically point out the episode they did post WTA Finals, because they give a lot of behind the scenes into what's going on the WTA tour, and the part of the episode where they talk about the photo shoot and how the photo shoot happened, I think is very informative, because you read a lot of stuff online and it's just a bunch of fans who are just like, assuming what happened. So it was really nice to actually hear from the players who were there and who actually participated in the photo shoot. to hear what they think, what could be different, what could change. But yeah, I really liked that podcast episode. What else? Ooh, the draw for my favorite tournament is out. The United Cup. I will leave the link to the draw, but I say this all the time. You're probably sick and tired of hearing me say this, but the United Cup is the best tournament of the year. I know it happens in January, so people forget, but it is an awesome tournament. Team USA won last year, led by Taylor Fritz and Coco Gauff, and they are coming back to defend their title. A bunch of like Iga Swiatek is going to be back again playing for Poland. Emma Raducanu and Jeff Draper are going to be playing for Great Britain this year. I think it's just a really great mixed team event and just is a really great start to the season. So the draw for the United Cup is out. Check it out. Stay tuned. We will be previewing that tournament and talking a lot about the United Cup once that time comes. Also, Ons Jabeur is having a baby. She announced recently, right after the WTA Finals, or like this past week actually, I think, that she is having a baby. I think a lot of people were anticipating her return to the tour, and instead of kind of announcing that, she basically announced that she's having a baby that is due in April. So she will not be returning to active play anytime soon, but it is really nice to see that she's happy and she's starting a family. So that was something really cool. That is all I have for you guys today to check out. And that is it for this mini solo pod, which as always is not really that mini, because who doesn't love to talk about tennis? I love to talk about tennis. So
for 25 years, Brightview Senior Living Associates have been committed to creating a vibrant culture and delivering exceptional services, making Brightview a great place to work and live. If you're looking for a rewarding opportunity to serve your local community and grow, we want you to join our team. Brightview Senior Living is growing and actively seeking vibrant associates to join our community teams, including directors, healthcare, activities, hospitality, and dining. Apply today at careers.brightviewseniorliving.com. Equal employment opportunities. Text BV Jobs to 97211 to apply.
Fall is all about cozy comforts, but when you're prioritizing your health, it's easy to feel like you're missing out. With Hero Bread, you can enjoy all your fall favorites because they're made with Hero Bread sliced bread loaves, tortillas, bagels, dinner rolls, and more. Try their all-new Hero Noodles with 12 grams of protein and just 80 calories. You won't believe Hero Bread's options have 0 to 5 grams net carbs and are high fiber from the taste and texture. They've even got small batch drops of indulgent favorites like the popular Hero Croissant. And right now, Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code FALL25 at checkout. That's FALL25 at HERO.co. All figures are per serving of Hero Bread. Contains 2 to 18 grams of fat per serving. See the product nutrition panels on hero.co for more information.
The best gifts of the holidays make your loved ones glow, inside and out. This season, Osea's Undaria Algae Body Butter is a surefire hit for everyone on your list. It leaves your skin feeling soft, smooth, and deeply nourished, with scents of grapefruit, lime, and cypress, combined with the sweet notes of mango mandarin. Give the gift of confidence this holiday season with Osea. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code OSEAGLOW at OSEAMalibu.com.
thank you for listening and tuning in to the podcast. If you're listening to this on a podcast player of your choice, specifically Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating. It would be so lovely to get to 20. That would be really, really cool. Spotify, leave us a rating wherever it is. YouTube, like and subscribe. Do the thing. And check out the FAA match stories. Let me know what you think about it. Hopefully we'll be doing more in the off season and trying to make it a regular thing. But, you know, I am but one person, and I actually edit all of our podcasts and all of our videos, and it's really hard doing it all by myself. So that is why the videos are slow to come. But I will keep them coming, and one day when we can afford it, we will have a professional editing for us. But until then, thank you for joining us, and we will see you, Nick and I, in the next episode. Bye, guys.